with the long colonnade spanning the full length of the front facade. The Greek Revival style was similar to the Georgia plantation home they'd lived in before the war. The inside was just as beautifully decorated as the outside. Mama had made sure of it. Savannah's footsteps slowed. What would her parents do if she didn't marry Chandler and his money? They needed the wealth the marriage would bring, allowing Daddy to invest in railroads again. But what would she do with her life if she became Mrs. Chandler Saxton? Especially since Chandler had made it clear that he didn't want her doing menial labor as a Southern gentleman's wife. He'd agreed with Mama that she'd need to focus on their home and children, and that her days as a veterinarian would have to come to an end. Would she have nothing better to do with her days than decorate her house? She didn't want to end up unhappy like Mama. Sure, her elegant and sweet-natured mother tried to hide her discontentment, but it was easy to see, and it was one of the reasons why Daddy was so anxious to go east, to Atlanta and civilization, where Mama would have more friendships and socializing. Savannah shifted her attention to the large horse barn and to Silas, who'd roused to saddle their mounts, and now stood by the wide door, yawning noisily. He held a lone lantern that illuminated her black Morgan, Molasses, although she normally rode Sugar, her Appaloosa. The problem with Sugar was that she was unique. With her silvery white coat and dark leopard-like spots, the horse was sure to stand out. When Daddy and Chandler started searching for her, one mention of the horse's description, and they would be right on her trail. Taking Molasses would give her more time. And she needed more time, didn't she? A few weeks, or even a month to gain perspective. Maybe after that, she'd be able to make herself go through with the marriage. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered. "I know you'll be disappointed." Since coming west and helping manage the ranch, Chandler had become like a second son to him. After Daddy had experienced so much sadness with Hartley's death, she didn't want to cause him more grief in losing Chandler, too. Yet, agreeing to marry Chandler was different from actually going through with the deed. As the wedding inched nearer, she'd felt more and more like a corralled wild Mustang. She'd circled and circled, going first one way and then the other. Now that she was facing a saddle and halter, she needed an escape. To be free, so she could decide what she wanted for herself first. "Thank you, Silas." Mr. Pritchard took his mount's reins from the middle-aged groomsman. Savannah handed Silas a haversack, hoping he wouldn't question why she had the extra luggage. Of course, she always wore her leather satchel strapped diagonally over her shoulder whenever she went on calls with Mr. Pritchard. She was as prepared as the veterinarian for any animal ailment. "Please tie the bag onto my saddle." She hitched her foot in the stirrup and hefted herself up. The groomsman stared from her to the haversack and back. She pretended to ignore him, making a show of situating herself in the saddle. Silas lifted the bag hesitantly. "Hurry on up, Silas. Mr. Pritchard and I need to be on our way." She arranged her split skirt on either side over the trousers she wore underneath, and prayed Silas wouldn't voice the question that filled his warm brown face. He set to work looping a rope around her bag and securing it to the saddle. After cinching the last knot, he stood aside and hooked his fingers through his suspenders. "Sure are taking a lot with you, Miss Savannah." In the process of releasing a pent-up breath, her lungs tightened again, especially when Mr. Pritchard looked at the haversack and raised a brow. She waved a hand to brush off the concern.